Kimberly Henry, welcome to Empower Never TV. Excited to finally be interviewing you.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, you've been a real blessing in this community in the last, whatever it's been, 6 weeks you've been here. You're such an encourager and you've already made a mark. So I'm curious to hear more of your story and find out why you do what you do, because I know you do some coaching and what makes you smile and what makes you tick. So where are we going to start this off with?
Well, I guess I would start with my background. Why I do what I do is because, and when we went into lockdown in 2020, I did a lot of hardcore self work because we were in lockdown. It triggered me into grief and it triggered me into feeling all of the loss with my mom passing in 2013, my dad dying in 2005, and recognizing that I'm a completely different person, especially when he died in 2005, considering even when my mom died in 2013, like I don't recognize who I was even then. And so I really did a lot of hardcore inner work on myself. And I really got over the obstacles for me getting to write my story because I always knew I had a story to tell. And the obstacles were feeling like my story wasn't really worthy enough, wasn't really celebrity enough, or you know everybody, there's so many people that are dealing with alcoholics, there's so many people that are dealing with domestic violence, and realizing that I, even though there's so many people that are dealing with that, I still have stories to share that people can get so many lessons from that, if that makes sense.
Well, let's go there because like at the holidays, everything seems heightened.
Oh
So,
yeah.
so what has been your journey of where you came from to where you are today?
Oh my gosh, I came a long way. And if you had told me even back in 2018 that I would be speaking with you, or I would be speaking as I do, because I do summits, I do panels, I've just done so much. I've started my own podcast show, what I'm still evaluating, what I wanted to look like and what I want to do with it. I would have laughed at you even back in 2018 if you had told me that I would be doing all of this. And so I remember being even 4 years old, 6 years old. I was so incredibly shy. I was using my fingers to speak to people. I wouldn't use my voice. And now I see in hindsight that it was all of the impact of being in an alcoholic home, but don't ask, don't tell. And so I went to acupuncture this week on Monday because it was a way of being with myself and honoring myself with even as much work as I've done. All of the stuff, like you said, still comes up at this time. All of those feelings of those loss, all of the recognizing I don't know who I am anymore. Like I'm not the same person, and it's all good. And it still brings up a lot of things. And I was saying to the acupuncture on Monday, like it doesn't even matter if you are seeing family, if you're seeing people in your life at this time of the year or not. It's still bringing up those things that causes us to feel a lot.
I just went through a session last night with one of our coaches in our academy, Adriana D. Marvel, and she helped me work through some of that stuff with my mom, my dad,
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter how old we get, that stuff is a part of our journey.
it is. Yeah, like, and I believe it's at the core of us because as I get older, I'm 46 now. And so getting into my mid 40s, I have such an appreciation for not only my journey, but I have such an appreciation and compassion for my family because when I really got into my story and I really dove into the genealogy, like Amos, I was shocked, to say the least, of just how much I saw of the grief and the loss that were there in the lineage, especially with the women. And nobody talked about it back then. Nobody encouraged them to see doctors. Nobody encouraged them to do any of that. So there's so much alcoholism that goes through decades and decades and decades in my family. So no wonder nobody talked about it. Nobody dealt with it. And so I have now such a compassion because Christmas was always the hardest for my mom. I remember being a kid crying to get a Christmas tree. And it was that hard for her to even celebrate in that way, to be able to get a tree, to put it up, to decorate it. It was so hard for her. But as a kid, I didn't understand why. Now that I've done the research, now that I've known about it, I get it. Like her mom, her dad, and her brother all died before she was 40 years old. Her dad and her brother died in the same year of 1977. Her brother died when she was pregnant with me, and her dad died only 6 months later. So no wonder why it was like so hard for her. But again, she didn't talk about any of that.
Sure, it's hard for people that when they see others celebrating Christmas and their world, they feel very decimated. Their worlds feel decimated. It becomes I don't want to hear about it because Christmas for me isn't a fun. I would assume there's a lot of people in that space.
Yeah, I just started a new day job too. And this woman I've been interacting with quite a lot, she's in our finance office. And so, but am I listening? I'm also paying attention to how people perceive her. And the comments I'm always receiving from people that I work with is, oh, she doesn't answer her phone, or, oh, she's just so rude about things, or she's just so harsh. Well, when I allowed a space to be with her yesterday and to be joyful to be with her, because I joke around that I feel like she's my new BFF because I'm calling her constantly about different things. Like Amos, I opened up a space for her that she openly told me that she's now going through a divorce. And nobody else knows this. Like she even looked over her shoulder to make sure that the COO wasn't there because his office is right across the room where we were. So she was very private in what she was sharing with me. And again, because I allowed that space to be with her, I felt like I got to know her on a different level. And because I don't have perceptions about her. So we're all going through stuff, especially this time of the year.
Well, heightened. That's what I find for me.
Yeah.
Christmas does it heightens. If there's sadness, it heightens it. If there's joy, it heightens it. If there's relationship challenges, it heightens it. Because there's expectations.
Absolutely. And I feel like it's so challenging for a lot of us to give ourselves grace, let alone other people grace. Because like you said, the expectations are super high this time of the year. And so I'm super grateful because my daughter has been away. She was in Europe for 4 years, and this is the first Christmas that I get to be with her because she's back in the States. And I'm grateful because we both agreed that we are just going to be this weekend. We're not putting expectations of gifts. We're not putting expectations of anything else. She did request a ham because she hasn't had a good ham since she got home in the States. And I can do that. And I'm grateful that that pressure gets to be let go of so it doesn't have to look a certain way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think I think everyone just needs a really good hug. I think we all need a really good hug. That would help.
Absolutely. I'm a
Christmas
hugger.
hug.
I'm always hugging people.
So, what is your personal mission? What is it you're wanting to um, walk out before you're 50?
Oh my gosh. I want to impact as many people as possible around the world. But speaking, I'm really elaborating on my speaking engagements. So I've already been an international virtual speaker. And so my intention is to go virtual as well, because I love virtual, and to be in-person stage speaker, because my intention is for people to get that we are all interconnected. I have a best friend that's in Germany, and I met her in 1993 when I was 16, she was 18. And that was the first time I was exposed really to somebody from another country. And by the end of that month that she stayed with us, she was closer to me as a sister than at the time my own sister. And so we are all truly connected. It doesn't matter really where our culture, where we are in the world. We all have the stuff that's all sitting there, and we get to all be with each other to raise our consciousness so that the healing starts to happen. And I believe it is happening. And I feel like it gets to be on another level of it, if that makes sense.
I feel that within myself, especially this year, 2023, there's like layers of healing that is taking place.
Absolutely. I got to tell you, this year has been the hardest year for me. I've gone through, and I'm still going through so many personal challenges that in the beginning of the year, I didn't really know how to handle it. And I can look back on it and see how I was triggered into old stuff. Because like I said, of being raised by two alcoholics, we were often evicted. I was homeless as a teenager living with my grandmother. And so I realized now in the beginning of the year, I was very triggered into that old stuff. And now at the end of the year, my word for this year was abundance. And I feel so amazingly abundant right now, like as I'm speaking to you, because my mindset shifted. And so, yes, I have a lot of this grief and a lot of the stuff that's coming up, and I can choose to be joyful with that grief. And I can choose to sit with myself and be graceful with myself that, yes, that's coming up. And I can also feel abundant. So it can be both of those things.
One of my favorite things, Kimberly, about this community is that this year, right, I've interviewed over 300 people, and people like you come on camera and say these very vulnerable, inspiring things that a lot of other people would never say, even if they also feel it. And they'd never be this vulnerable because of fear. And I just want to give you props for, thank you for being vulnerable, because you're voicing what others feel and think. And so it's inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you. And I really feel like that's what I've learned about myself, especially this year. My superpower is my vulnerability, because by me being vulnerable, I can open that space for other people to be vulnerable, and perhaps it'd be that much easier for them to let go of that fear. Because yeah, of course, I still feel fear. I have a natural fear of feeling possibly rejected, because I felt often rejected by my alcoholic father. So I can easily be triggered into that. However, I know that when I'm vulnerable and I choose to be vulnerable, I know that I'm allowing other people to feel those things that are naturally being fearful of, if that makes sense.
So what is on the horizon next? Like, you're working a day job, doing your coaching. I recently interviewed Chris Delancey,
Yes.
I don't know if it's a friend of yours who's someone you're coaching. Um, who, yeah, what's happening in 2024? Let's talk about specifics.
Oh my gosh, I have a collaboration book that's coming out next month. And there are 20 of us in the book, and we're from 16 different countries. So I'm super excited about that, to be a part of that work. And again, that's about each of our stories about being fearful and how to overcome that fear. And because we are from so many different countries, it's amazing to see how those stories are so different. And yet the main, part of it is that fear, talking about that. And I'm really being intentional with where do I want to go with the speaking, who do I want to work with? I'm getting very particular who I want to work with, because I see that I get to choose that. I apologize for the background noise.
It's okay, just keep talking.
So I really am seeing that I get to choose like who I want to work with, where do I want to be speaking, and does it align with my values? That is my huge lesson for this year. If my values do not align with another person's value or another company's values, it's not going to work. That's a main lesson for me. That's why I love what you're creating in this group and everything that you're doing. I love that because your values align with my values.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about values. What is the importance of values that you're learning so specifically? What are you finding it's making? What is it doing to your relationship or friendships or work relationships?
Oh my gosh, let's go to work. Okay. Because I took a job that I did for 6 months this year. And I thought that it was going to be amazing because it was with a company that I was already seeing that were my providers, a chiropractor. And into the journey of it, oh my gosh, it was hard work. Like being on my feet all day, having to be constantly on the go. Like there was no space for me to be mindful at all because it was just an expectation of being at my top percent all the time, dealing with people day in, day out, all day long for like 9 hours. So what I realized and what I got from that is that company's values were not about the people they were serving. It was about the money that they were making from the people that they were serving. And they were always trying to figure out not only ways to not take away from the people that they were serving, but they weren't over serving those people. Does that make sense? And they definitely weren't over serving us being employed by them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's pretty obvious when people are just about the money. And
Yeah. And
I
it's,
got, yeah,
oh no, go ahead.
well, I was gonna say, I got no problem with money, like, money is, it's necessary, it's a tool, but people know right away when they walk in the room. Yeah, you know right away what someone's about.
Absolutely. And for being somebody who is working for this corporation, it, and I also feel the same, like I love money and money is energy. So, and I also realized that I have a lot of old stuff around money, again, being with alcoholics, that there was never enough. It was always going out faster than it was coming in. It was always borrowing from Peter to pay Paul to get it from Mary, like all of that stuff. I realized I have a lot of those old things. And there's nothing wrong with money. However, oh, it was obvious that people were picking up the energy and the intention that the company had around money. And so once I got clear that this is not my value, I opened up to being the possibility of, let me see if there's something else and that, what's possible. So I did. I went on to a service for jobs and I applied for this one that I currently have. These people are everything that align with my values. They serve an impoverished community. They really care about the community that they're serving, and they're always evaluating and reassessing what can they do as the executive team, because I work with the CEO and the COO and the chief of staff. They're always reassessing, okay, we did this before, but what can we do today? Can we do something different? And can we make our services better for these people or easier for these people so that they're being served with a whole holistic view of what they need in their life and for their children's life? And that is what is meaningful to me. Does that make sense?
So, have you always been kind-hearted?
I have. I can remember being 4 years old, walking with my dad. And again, being an alcoholic, we were always walking to the corner beverage center for him to get beer. And as we were walking down the street, I was always smiling at people. I was always wanting to make people feel happy. I always wanted people to feel seen. And that is what's like still so important to me. I want people to feel seen. I want people to feel heard. And I want people to get that they mean.
Your last sentence there. You want to get that, you want people to be seen, be heard, and I think we lost your audio. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. We- Sorry, Kimberly, I think we lost your audio or connection there.
I'm a beer
Watching.
brings up.
Okay, so the last thing we heard was you want people to feel seen and heard.
And for them to get that they mean something to me and to other people.
Yeah, well, sounds like pretty primary needs that we have.
Yeah, and I feel like there's such a gap in our society of people getting that.
Yeah, there's always a gap of the important things. There's an abundance of the stuff that doesn't matter, like Instagram selfies. but
Exactly.
there's a lack of the things that actually matter. So how are you gonna make 2024? What are you gonna do in your world to help bridge that gap for people that need those things, the primary needs?
That's a good question. Honestly, I'm evaluating that for myself because I've had so many changes going on just in the last month that I'm really sitting with myself and evaluating and assessing like what do I want? What do I want things to look like? So I can't quite answer that at the moment because I really am in the deep contemplation of figuring out what do I want to do and what does it look like for me.
Maybe you and your daughter over the Christmas ham will have a conversation about that.
Yes. And you know what's interesting? Actually, we're talking about Chris. I was messaging her a little while ago, and my daughter, since she just came back this year, we're really in a space of we're getting to know each other all over again. She was 18 years old when she left for Europe. And so now she comes back in her mid-20s, completely different person, and she's an adult, and she lived through a pandemic in Europe. And I've completely changed. She doesn't recognize who I am anymore. I never even imagined that I would be speaking when she left 4 years ago. So we're really getting to know each other. So that would be an interesting conversation to have with her to get her feedback.
I'm curious if your daughter and you would ever do anything together in the personal development field.
I would love that. And I've opened that up to her, and it's really waiting until she's ready to take that step with me. She keeps telling me that I've done a lot of work to get where I am, and she's not quite in that space yet to do that with me.
It wouldn't surprise me if that happens for you guys down the road.
I mean, I can't tell you how excited I would be, how I would adore that. That would make me so happy because I see the potential in her. I can get easily caught up into seeing that potential. I don't know if you can relate to that, and I'm sure other people in the group can relate to that I get caught up in the potential of seeing what people can do. Yeah, I know that I just get to hold space for her, that when she's ready to do it, she will come to me saying she's ready to do it.
Well, that's the best coaching is when you love someone enough to go, I'm going to respect and honor your choice and your time. Here's some facts maybe to think about, but it's ultimately up to you.
Absolutely. And I feel like, all of us coaches, I feel like that's particularly hard for myself, that when I love somebody that much, that I just get to hold that space for them. Because I got to tell you, as a single mom, it was so challenging to just let her go and go to Europe, especially when she was young. And this is what she wanted. And my intention raising her as a single mom, because I repeated the patterns with domestic violence and her father was an addict. My intention of raising her was to raise an independent woman who knew what she wanted, would go after what she wanted, and trust that she would figure it all out. And that's exactly who I raised, and that's exactly what's happened. So I get to be in that happiness that I'm patting myself on the back, that I've done an amazing job with her.
Well, we hope to see her one day on Empower Network TV. That'd be awesome to hear her story.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That would be amazing.
Well, Kimberly, Henry, thanks for being here in Empower Network TV. Thanks for jumping on December 23rd with me. It's wonderful to have you in the community, and I love hearing your story and your heart.
Thank you for having me. And again, thank you for having this space, and thank you for everything that you're doing. And thank you for being you.
My pleasure. Thanks. Okay, well, if you're watching Empower Network TV, Kimberly, please put any links you got, even your upcoming co-authored book, any links in the comments to the Facebook, in the Facebook post so people can connect with you. And love that you're here. Have a Merry Christmas, Kimberly. Enjoy that.
Thank you.
That Christmas ham with your daughter.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you. And again, thank you for doing this today.
My pleasure. Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas, ENTV.